Ego. Mr.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Mr. Jason.
Oh, Mr. Craig.
I would like to introduce the Knights of the Insurance Hiring Roundtable. Deep dive.
Oh.
Dave Williams and Kat Ternes.
It sounds like we're going to learn a lot today.
We'll slap that cat and throw it over the wall.
Buckle up, it's the Insurance Dudes Podcast.
Well, awesome. I guess this is not a typical one of our podcasts, huh? Jason, is it?
No, it is not.
No.
This is different.
Uh-huh. So we have Kat Ternes from Agency Zoom, who was coerced into working with Tolga. And then Dave Williams, a friend of the show that's been on before. So welcome.
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Awesome.
Great. How you doing?
Good. Doing well.
Yeah. So actually, the Agency Zoom reached out to organize this and just kind of have a frank conversation about hiring, and who better to bring on to help facilitate that than Dave Williams, one of the co-founders of Team Hired.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the opportunity to coming on and joining you guys and talking about it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
So Dave, let's. A lot of people know you as an agent, and let's kind of go. How did you start Team Hired, and can you take us kind of through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've always had a passion for working with people and staffing and recruiting. That's kind of been my forte even before Allstate. Before Allstate, I worked at Circuit City as a store manager. I was in charge of a $20 million superstore, had a staff of 60 people, and we were constantly in recruiting. So when I came into Allstate, we took a lot of the basic fundamentals that I did at Circuit City and I did in retail as an executive there, implemented them into Allstate. And I would say a big part of our success over the years of 10 years being in business, we started as a scratch agency. We grew to nearly $20 million in premium, mostly organically over time, over the 10 years. But a big part of that success was really having a dynamic hiring process. And I'd say always having the mentality to always be hiring. So we were never in a situation where we would lose one of our best people, or we would be reactive where we maybe had to make a bad hiring decision or a rushed hiring decision to get somebody in there to fill a position. So we are always, just always in the process of hiring. And that, honestly, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the job, is getting to interact with people and in that hiring process. And I feel that was something we mastered over time. And looking out just in the insurance vertical and even outside of that in other businesses, the one thing I think is like the most difficult thing for the average business is finding good people. And I guess I just wanted to take my passion and to be able to do that in our process to help others. And we've been blessed to have a lot of success around the country so far. I think we're in the triple digits of how many positions that we've filled for agents around the country. And we dissected the hiring process of, really what gets in the way. And, one of the biggest things is, especially for agency owners, business owners out there, is there's so many different hats the average business owner is wearing that there's not a lot of time to be in that mentality of always be hiring and always staffing. And when you break it down, like all the things that are involved in finding the right people, you're putting up job ads, you're hosting resumes, you're vetting those people. But to make the right hiring decision, what we've found almost statistically, it takes about 9 to 10 bodies, 9 to 10 live people in front of you doing an interview to find that one rock star. So I thought to myself, and we thought to myself, my partner, Tom Bianco, like, how do we solve that for everybody out there? And we really took a process that was working really well for us in order to do that. And that was hosting career events and hiring events for businesses and agency owners. So basically what that looks like is, we'll put ads up all over the area. Like when we're even recruiting for ourselves internally, we'll put ads up all over the area. One of our last recruiting events that we did for ourselves internally, we had 145 people scheduled for a big career event that we did. We had 72 people show up, and the end result of that was 6 to 7 hires that we had. And a lot of those people are doing very, very well for us. But that's what we'll do. We'll put ads up all over the area. We have a dedicated recruiter that works hand in hand with all of our clients, and she'll schedule these career events, and myself and our team will actually coach up the business owner how to effectively facilitate these career events. So now you're not spending an hour one-on-one with every single candidate, but you're literally sitting there in a group of 5 to 10 people that you're interviewing simultaneously. So it's conserving time, and you get to talk to all those people in 1 hour segment. But the cool thing about it, I think, in my opinion, it creates a unique dynamic and atmosphere there. So what we found in the years of staffing and recruiting is there's a lot of professional interviewers out there. And what I mean by that is they've been on so many different interviews, they're just like really good at answering those same interview questions over and over again. And that could cause somebody to, maybe make the wrong hire because they get in, they talk the talk, but when they get in, they can't walk the walk. Like, they got call reluctance, they lack confidence. What's unique about this group dynamic that we do is when you're interviewing everybody else, that professional interviewer maybe that lacks confidence, this creates a little bit higher pressure of an interview situation to see how they react a bit under pressure. Because now they're interviewing from you, the prospective employer, but they got 4 other strangers sitting next to them that they got to perform in front of them. And those people that might not be cut out of the cloth that you're looking for, they get weeded out in that process very quickly, so you don't make a hiring mistake. But the opposite end of that, like the rock stars, the ones that do very well, they tend to stand out extremely well. They're the ones that are the most articulate, the ones with the most energy. And then those are the ones we recommend our clients to bring back for that second one-on-one interview at that point. But the process, it's worked really, really well so far. And we've been having success for ourselves and across the country for agency owners.
Dude, that's awesome, Dave. Thank you. And I actually had some experience because you
we rocked the house for you guys. Whether you had like 24 people show up.
I think there were 25. 5 were late, so we booted them. But they ended up sitting out there the whole time. We didn't even know they were out there. They just sat in the front. But yeah, we got results, and I do want to talk about that. But before I get to that, I think that it's important to acknowledge something that you said near the beginning, which is that it is probably one of the hardest parts, finding top candidates, and sort of like in the way that we do our sales, right? We create a funnel. So we have a whole bunch of people that we call, then we have a little bit less that we quote, and then we get down to the sales, right? So as the business owner, the way that you're going to be most effective is by doing that same thing with the potential, with the always be recruiting and always be hiring.
Absolutely.
I think that agency owners, whether captive or independent or even, ECP or startup, whatever it is, and especially in those instances where it's really high turnover because they don't know what's going on, that they'll, if they get somebody good, they kind of get comfortable and they think, oh, well, I'm good, because I have a solid team.
They let their foot off the gas, right?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And even I've done this 10 years. I'm fairly experienced. I don't think I'm by any means, some pro at all this, because you learn something new every day. But I opened on November 1st. I had 7 people. I lost 5 of them in the first 2 weeks. Right? Just all of a sudden, it's like everything went wrong, And so that was around the same time when we set up the event. So we got out of the event, there were 25 showed up, 20 that we brought into the room, and we hired 5 of them. Now, of the 5, 2 have started. 1 has ghosted me. Another one moved away, and the third one is taking her test tomorrow. So there may be a third, which I think would be great numbers off of having 20 people. If we got
absolutely.
That's a huge win. A huge win.
Yeah.
And, I am wrong. I actually, one of them, he started before the other 2 who started a couple days ago. No, I have 3. So I'll have 4 potentially. And the first one, to give real numbers, he's at almost 15,000 in premium for December, and he started December 1st.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal.
So, that's a big win. And
That's better numbers than I can work with out here. Like trying to do software in InsurTech to bring on the team of 5 that we just brought on. We started with 80 people.
Woo!
Wow.
And that was, it is a time suck. Like Dave, mentioned, as an agency owner, you can never let off the gas to, what Craig was mentioning there. You just never know when you're safe, because you're really never safe. Your best performer could get a fantastic opportunity and you don't want to hold them back. You certainly want to be, happy for them and say, oh, I've, put people in successful positions. And then there are times that people are going to be a bad hire. You want to avoid those to the most of your ability, or a rushed hire, which is somewhere kind of in between. Those are the people that come in and you apply 10-80-10 to them and you're like, this just isn't working out, or you need so much of my time. But yeah, it is beyond difficult. And it's a candidates market across the whole country right now. The unemployment rate is down. We're seeing this just uniformly across the industries. And I think we're all looking for experienced, good talent too. People that are really going to be a great fit for our organization long-term. We're not looking for short-term seasonal hires. As close to Christmas as we are, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people that are going to make a big impact in our organizations. And that just makes it even harder to find the right people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big problems is most, or a lot of agents, a lot of agencies are delusional about everything across the board, about sales. I mean, it's the same process for hiring as it is sales. You have to get those 100 people in there to find 5 to 10 or whatever that number may be in your area. But I mean, it's just numbers. It's just like quotes and everything. And it's like, if people really want to get serious about hitting their numbers, getting enough people in the office so they can actually sell and all this stuff, they got to get this stuff down. They got to be real about the numbers and know that, hey, if I have 10 hires, I need to get 100 people in there. And realistically, I have 8 hours in the day. I got to motivate my current staff. I've got to do all this stuff. I have to bring in a team to bring in a team. There's no way one person can do it all.
It's just one little spoke of the wheel,
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've seen that exact same thing, because what happens a lot, because it can be a daunting process, we find that they're looking for that perfect candidate. And a lot of times what can happen is there's this over-analysis paralysis that leads to the end result being hiring nobody or getting nobody in front of you. But to that point, Jason, what we found is it's a numbers game. The same way, it might take you 10 quotes to close a deal. But not every one of those quotes is going to be an IS4. And that's why our process is we get all these live people in front of somebody. It's by design. There's going to be some people that don't fit the cloth in there, but we know out of 9 to 10 live candidates, there's going to be inevitably a rock star amongst them that's going to be the right mold in the agency that's going to be able to deliver.
When we had them, what we did, I brought them into my conference room. So we brought them all in the conference room, and then I gave a little spiel, welcomed them all, said a whole thing. And then I said, does anybody have any questions? The first guy that just started going, he just, went, hey, I'm from Geico. And he presented himself in front of everybody. He's the one that actually is the one that wrote the 15K. It was
That's awesome.
You could see just right off the bat. And then there were 3 others, because we broke into breakouts. So it was my operations manager and then another manager from another office. So we had 3 different rooms where it was a smaller group. It did the setting. 2 of the ones that were in my room are the guys that just started. And then the 2 from one of the other rooms, one of them was good. I think she's going to start tomorrow. She's probably going to pass. And then the other one, who they said she was quiet, but then when I did one-on-one interviews, I liked her. And to your point about the professional interviewer, she's the one that's disappeared. So I went against the whole, I was like, I shouldn't have known, but it's remarkable, because one thing that they all said was, I did not expect to be in a room with a whole bunch of people and have to talk like that. And it's well, that's the job, right?
And that's the great thing about it too, because it creates this dynamic where they are caught off a little bit off guard with it.
Yeah.
And, we find the key is we have an orientation. We just simply explain the process. During the orientation, we find it's important to talk about the opportunity, at your business at Allstate, the culture, what it looks like, so they really understand the career path and the size of the scope of the opportunity that they have in front of them there. But again, it creates this a little bit higher pressure environment where that professional interview, they're not used to that, catches them off guard, and again, prevents you from making that potential hiring mistake.
Yep.
I think that competition factor too, like you really see who's going to like put their head down and like grinding, like has that grit to like get out there and talk about it and be confident, like you said, what you're doing. I think it does remove that professional interviewer from the area that they are most comfortable just going through the motions in, and gives us that advantage again to really see the inherent skills that hopefully we've all identified as valuable within our agencies or our businesses.
Absolutely.
And I'll bring up something. So I've actually been doing this for about 6 months now, the big group interviews, and it's a little intimidating at first. Like, and I think that there are a lot of agency owners out there probably when they're listening to this think like, wow, that's an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
And it is at first, just like coaching is, just like everything else is. So get over it. And if you really want to, if you really want, like, doing one-on-one interviews in this day and age, just you'll never reach your goals. I mean, that's like doing one quote a day. Like, how are you ever going to sell anything?
And it's team hired, that's exactly why we make part of our process too. It's not just we're going to deliver people to you, but we do have a coaching element to it too. So when we're in there, we're going to walk somebody through that process A to Z to make sure when they walk into their first career event, they're comfortable, they're confident. And then we find just exactly that. Like, some people are like, hey, I've never done this before. They're a little bit nervous. But after they do it, it's almost like every single time, I will never interview any other way ever again, because it delivers the result, and it's just a lot more efficient.
Yeah, and we've used Team Hired, and last we were supposed to have an event last week. My entire family got sick. It was a nightmare, and I had to be out of the office and stuff. And they rescheduled everything. And if I didn't have the Team Hired team helping with that, we would never, like, there's no way I would have rescheduled, or I would have been so behind the 8 ball. So it's like, you gotta invest in somebody to help you with the hiring, because when life happens, it's like, that's the last thing you're never going to call those people. Out of the list of stuff you have to do, the hiring part of it is the last thing that you'll probably, put at the top of your list, because to run your agency.
I think everybody has to be aware of their own like shortcomings, whether that's in like an agency management position. Like, I can recruit, but I can't train. It's not my strong suit. So I need to look at options of how, once I bring these people in and I've busted my butt to get them in the door and they're here, like, how do I keep them around? That's like an option, all the way to, there might be some people that are the most sincere and devoted like coaches, and they just struggle creating enough time then for new hires. So I think people have to either bring on a person that like fulfills their weaknesses, and that's a difficult hire. It's a super self-aware, reflective hire is who's going to meld well with you. Or you have to get somebody, like Dave's team, that's professional at it and is giving you like, listen, we know the numbers, here's the process, follow it, and you're going to get the kind of, results that you need. And then you can do a fantastic job at the things that you're really incredibly talented at.
Absolutely.
There's no point struggling over things that are never going to really move the needle for your business.
And I completely agree with that statement too, because that getting them in the door, that's one part of the process. But it's like, when you find that right person, that superstar, now it's like, how do I keep them? How do I maintain them? How do I motivate them? So what we found as a best practice for that too is what we'll do in our organization. So we got pretty high retention. A lot of our people have been with us like 3 to 5 years. And I believe that's because, we have a defined career path for everybody that's in our organization. If they start with us for a telemarketer, they know the length of time and the actions and steps that they need to take to get to that licensed sales producer position. They know what they need to do to become a senior licensed sales producer. They know what they need to do to become a supervisor, sales director, all the way up towards, mentoring to the point where they can open up their own agency. So when we have them come in as a best practice, we'll find like one of the best people in our organization that's got the most potential, and maybe they have goals to open up their own agency one day or be an agency manager, we'll involve them in the process, and we'll tell them that, hey, this is going to be part of your development. We want you to be in this process, and this is going to be a perfect test for you. Because in my opinion, the most important thing in running an agency, there's a million things to focus on, or running a business in general, is being able to bring on the right people, but then develop them to the level where they're going to be able to grow your business. And this is going to be a test for you. We're going to essentially put this person under your wing for 90 days to see how well you can do. And we have been involved in that process from A to Z. Even in the upfront orientation, we'll have that key person speak to a day in the life of the position with the candidates. We'll allow them to ask some interview questions. And then once we onboard that person, which we have that candidate in part of the decision-making process, they're mentoring underneath them. And then what we do is we put an incentive structure in place and say, hey, if this person hits this performance level in the first month, maybe you're going to get a $1,000 bonus. If they hit this performance level, you're going to get a $1,500 bonus. So they're incentivized during that 90-day process. But what's great about it is this new person that knows nothing about the business is mentoring underneath our best, most capable, most talented individual. And we find a lot of the training honestly comes through osmosis. When they're sitting next to that caliber of individual, before you see it, like day one, week one, a month in, all of a sudden they're mimicking and styling the behaviors, the mannerisms, the talk paths of that individual. And all of a sudden you have a mini-me of that person that's out on your floor. And we found that to work very well in helping develop somebody in our agency that's looking to go to the next level, but at the same time, get that person in that, early on, get some early wins and success and the right level of training and support.
I think that's a key, is get the new hires with the early wins. I see it so often. And in our agency, we know that if somebody's not selling within 2 weeks, that their self-esteem is down. There's almost no recovering.
And in that mindset, once they get to that point, it's so tough to overcome that, because now they've developed over 2 weeks, they've developed limiting beliefs, and it's tough to break those beliefs, those beliefs that they have there. But when they're sitting alongside your best, I've always found, like, I have a terminology I like to use, shadow of a leader. Like, shadow of a leader to me is very important. It's like, what shadow are you casting in your agency every single day? Because you can come in and demand people to do something or instruct people to do something, but I've always found people will do as you do before they do as you say. And if you have them next to somebody that's literally, they're seeing them eat, live, and breathe, they're practicing what they preach, like, there's no excuse not to do it. Like, they just it's like, get on the train or get off. And we found the right people, more times than not, they're going to get on the train and they're going to start to mimic the same behaviors and results.
Right.
Makes sense. Yep.
You're using that top 10% of your hires to really move the middle, that initial, that 80% that's always going to be there, using those all-stars and giving them more responsibility, which, so many people are craving. How do I get to the next step? What's the plan? That's certainly part of it. That our recruiting style has even come out of a similar mentorship and the opportunity, as you're becoming successful, to take on additional responsibilities as often as possible, bringing in a referral, somebody that is friends of friends, whether that was at a previous company and organization, whether that was, they went to college together. We hire a relatively, group of young people. So, we still have that as a successful funnel. But yeah, it helps so much to have the mentorship attached to the leadership, that it's, like you said, Dave, just not do as I say, not as I do, but they're really watching you, like, live and breathe, as a wonderful example.
No, absolutely.
Hey, Kat, can you kind of talk about your background with hiring and your ramping up of Agency Zoom and kind of your process?
Yeah. So like I said, to start off our process, it is a little bit nutty. We do cold outreach of the people I've hired in the past, and that's anywhere from what you guys would consider equivalent to a telemarketer. If I was looking for somebody to be able to sell to Allstate agents, it certainly wouldn't hurt to go grab an Allstate telemarketer or a sales producer. Those would be really the two roles that I've spent a lot of time with. And we traditionally bring them into that telemarketing role initially, and then groom them and grow them up into the organization. We do our best to not bring somebody in ahead of somebody else who's been there busting their butt. But it starts with them doing some amount of outreach, us doing cold outreach. Out of everyone I've hired, I've only ever taken one active candidate. Everybody else is sitting at a desk job, sitting pretty, liking their life, making the most of it. Even if their job isn't perfect, they have that like grit and that intensity to like go make the most of it. So yeah, that slows down the process. But I think one of the things too, to the point that you're all using that I love, and we've done similar in the past, are those events. You got to treat it like a pipeline, and you can never kill a deal in a pipeline. Like if somebody says, like if I'm talking to Jason and I'm like, listen, Jason, I think you have a good opportunity to learn more at your current company. And he's like, Kat, yeah, I'm probably okay where I'm at. Don't force it, figure out what the difference is going to be when you can make that greatest impact, and make sure Jason's coming to those group events so that everybody else that's there for the first time knows what type of person you're looking for. Turn Jason into the biggest advocate for your company, and then make sure that everybody that is part of your company is attending those events too. Craig, I think you said you had your operations manager there. You can't just have one person, you can't just have the rock star there. It's got to be everybody, because you just don't know who's going to come in the door and who's going to matter most and connect with someone on an individualized level. So we do proactive outreach. We are spending time with people on a one-to-one basis, but as soon as somebody's in that pipeline, until they tell me, Kat, you're a crazy lady, please go away. Like stop checking out my LinkedIn profile. We're staying in touch and making sure they're attending those group events, and we try and keep a pretty tight schedule on those to be doing those once every 2 months. I want to know if the smallest thing starts coming up in somebody's life, that they're starting to feel like they're topping out at their current career. And then it's my job to nurture them. And if I can get them into my organization and take them to that next level, to get to do that then. So.
No, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important to nod to the importance of expertise. And Dave, your background before it's such a great story. I almost wanted to have you tell it again. How
I can give you the Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great in case anybody missed the original podcast with you, because that's a really cool story. And then the importance, though, that because you've done all these things and you've done it 10,000 times, it's much more effective, even though it may seem like it costs a lot to bring in somebody to do this, whether it's team hired or somebody else, but you bring somebody in and they know how to do this thing. And look, your time is better spent over here, because like you said, I mean, you're doing a million things, and you hire the wrong person because you're doing it on the cheap, it doesn't pay off. But if you could, I mean, your story's great. I love
No, absolutely. And on that point too, we actually kind of perfected it down to a science where the cost of our package we found ends up being more affordable than they're putting up all the ad spend following the normal process that we do. To go as low as $1,500 to $2,000 for in a hire in the package, which again I think works out pretty competitive when you look at the average recruiting agency that's out there, and small price to pay to have a superstar join your team and your organization.
Dave, are you taking on new clients? Because when you tell me, and I'm going to coffee like every morning starting at 6:30 when the coffee shop opens, and I'm coming into work at 9, and you tell me for $1,500 to $2,000, I'm going to be able to sit down and like have good candidates show up at my door. Like I could use some extra sleep. So you tell me when you start taking on new clients.
Yeah. Consider it done. We'll connect after the call. But no, I mean, to give you the Cliff Notes version of my story again. I mean, was with Allstate for 10 years that led up to launching Team Hired. But back 10 years ago, I fell down on my luck a little bit. I deal with health challenges, and back then it was at its worst. I had some autoimmune issues that put me off of work for about 6 months on disability, and I used to play college baseball, and I thought that's what I was going to do my entire life. That didn't pan out, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I started just selling car stereos at Circuit City. Found out I was pretty good at sales, good with people, moved up very quickly, became an executive store manager, and that was my career for 10 years. And when I started having the health issues, I went off of work on disability for about 6 months, probably got in the worst financial position I ever was in, because not working for 6 months, not getting an income, it makes it pretty difficult. finally got to the point, health-wise, I wasn't ready to come back to work, but I had to force myself to come back to work because otherwise I was going to lose my position. So came back to work before I was ready, and then 3 months later, I got hit again and found out that Circuit City was filing Chapter 11 and going bankrupt. So now I was going to lose my career at the same time, and it was just a lot of mixed emotions. There was a lot of change, but it was a blessing in disguise because it catapulted me into the right scene. So what happened next throughout that process was I had a friend of the family that was with Allstate. I was done working with people. And even at the time, I had doctors telling me that, hey, you know what? Most people with what you got, they end up on long-term disability. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I just told myself, I'm like, that's not the life that I'm going to live. I'm going to create a life on my own terms that's conducive to my health. It's conducive to my family. And I literally, no lie, I can show you a picture. I still have it hanging in my office at home. I wrote myself out a check for $1 million. And that check for $1 million wasn't about the money at all. It was something to give me a mental picture and a visual every single day. I literally looked at that check every single day. And what it meant to me was creating that life for myself, creating a life that was on my own terms, taking care of my family, because, my parents, I wanted to, take care of my beautiful wife and provide a life for her. And my parents growing up literally gave the shirts off their back for me and never, me and my sister, I had a brother that went down the wrong path and they never wanted to see us go down that same path. So they literally sacrificed everything, never bought new clothes, never went on vacation. So I made it my mission that I wanted to be able to give back to them and be able to gain enough resources that I could provide them a life of their dreams. And I was able to, God willing, bring them on probably 8 inner circle trips. They went to every single All-State award trip that we were able to win. And, it was a complete blessing. But when I first started talking to somebody at Allstate about the opportunity, I was like, you know what, I'm in. People were then telling me, hey, go work for somebody first. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go all in. I'm just going to figure this thing out, open up an agency. But the problem I had was I just came back from a difficult financial situation and didn't have the capital. So shortly after that, I just started getting my licensing. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out a way. And then when the liquidators came into Circuit City, they basically said, all the open merchandise, Dave, we need to blow out, and we just got to get rid of it, pennies in the dollar. Anything that's a customer return, any open merchandise. I saw that as my opportunity to raise capital. I took the last about $7,000 out of my 401k, ended up buying close to $80,000 of the merchandise, took it all, sold it all online, paid off my debt, and then raised the capital I needed for my first scratch agency, hired 2 people that lost their job with me at Circuit City. And honestly, we just, from day one of my agency open, I acted as if I still looked at that check every single day and realized that was my freedom. And I acted as if somebody was trying to take that away from me 24 hours a day. No joke, when I first got in there, day one, our instructor came in to train us on how to quote, how to run an agency, all that. And they said, the first 2 weeks we're going to be training and then you can start selling. And I'm like, listen, I don't have the luxury to do that. I'm literally 30, 60 days away from, being out of business if we don't hit some major revenue. So I'm like, what I'd rather have you do is train me, teach me, and coach me while I'm in action. And our first location was across from the DMV inside of a shopping mall. And I literally ran out and started grabbing people out of line. And my first customer is still with me to this day, Geraldo Hernandez. Our first customer, I remember bringing him in out of the DMV line. We signed up his motorcycle, his home, his autos. And I had no idea what I was doing. It literally took us, I think, 5 hours to sign up all of his policies with this trainer and instructor. And then that's how we learn, but we learn fast. But because, back to my point, shadow of a leader, because I set that level of intensity and I set that kind of tone, what do you think the 2 employees that I just unbound, how do you think they acted and performed? It was literally, there was no room to do anything but hustle and grind all day long. And that's what we did to build a business. And we didn't have anything fancy back then. I didn't have the money to buy leads. I didn't have any of the stuff. I literally worked out of a phone book, the equivalent of a phone book. We're using Cole X-Dates, Sales Genie, and just pounding the phones all day long, getting people, perfecting our pitch, getting people interested, quoting them, and closing them. And I think in our very first month, we did 70-something items. We started to bring some revenue in, and then I started to pull myself out of the business and focus on the business, building best practices, processes, systems, investing in marketing that, allowed us to scale it today to, close to $20 million in revenue.
That's exceptional. That's like the kind of thing
awesome.
that you tell a team during the halftime for national championship. I got back out there. Get back out there. That is.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course.
It is. And so that's why I would love to kind of get your head. I'd love to know where your head's at with this. So when you hire someone, what are you looking for? With all that experience and with your drive and what you've been able to do, what are the qualities that you would say are the just hands down what you're looking for?
Yeah. So, what we're looking for at the end of the day is that high energy individual that's motivated, that's driven, that's looking for that opportunity to get them to the next level. A lot of the people that have moved on from us to own their own agencies, to become agency managers, you name it, they started in, we had some people that were, flipping burgers. They were looking for a career path. And I love somebody that's hungry, that's looking for that opportunity, and they've just never gotten it in life. And somebody that's really hungry and willing to put in the degree of effort that it takes to be extremely successful in that business or in this business. So, that's really the caliber of person we're looking for. Somebody dynamic. I know there's a lot of people out there, they're looking for sometimes to fill that void and looking for the path of least resistance. Hey, I want a licensed person that's already trained. And I've actually found that more times than not that can be detrimental, because what I found when you hire a licensed candidate, and there's exceptions to this rule, but more times than not, you hire a licensed candidate, they're not out in the job market looking because they're crushing it somewhere else and they up and left their job.
Precisely, 100%.
Didn't work out somewhere else. They're hopping habitually agency to agency. And what I find with that is embedded limited beliefs, and that person is typically not coachable. But most importantly, and even more detrimental, when they come into your operation, all the other great people in your operation, they can come in and bring them down very quickly with their mentality and their attitude, because they might have came from an environment. You're asking them to do 40, 50 items in a month, performance-wise, in the insurance vertical, and they came from an environment or an agency that hasn't done that in 4 months. So they might nod their head, yeah, I'll do that, I'll get it done. But what they're thinking is that impossible. Dave's out of his mind. There's no way I can do that. Right. But they're not saying that. You know who they're saying that to is all the other people in your office.
Yeah.
When other people in your office hear that intrinsically over and over from somebody they perceive is experienced in the business, all of a sudden you got somebody having a bad week or a bad month. They start to buy into that person, and you take a really good producer in your agency and it brings them down. Yeah. So I like somebody that's got the right cloth, even somebody that's in retail. We've hired people from Best Buy, for example. We know that somebody from Best Buy, if they're working in their TV department, their computer department, that's one of the higher gross margin areas in Best Buy, and they'll put their best salespeople in there. And they'll also, when they promote their salespeople to a supervisor, it's typically their best salespeople, and they're really undercompensated. A lot of their supervisors at Best Buy make $14 an hour. So somebody like that's in retail, I know that's hungry, they're willing to put in retail hours, and they're grinding and not even getting compensating according to the degree of effort they're putting in. And I can plug them into this, give them a career. That person is going to stick with me. They're going to be loyal. That's somebody I can mold and develop. And if I tell them, hey, 40 items is the price of admission to earn your seat here, they're going to do it. And they're going to do whatever it takes. So I'd rather take somebody from the ground up, mold them, coach them. And that's how every single superstar we've had in our organization, they started without a license, and we've gotten them to that point where, they're crushing it now.
I feel like this might not come as a surprise in the insurance space, considering how much time we spend at each of these respective areas. But the two people that I will take time with, no matter who they are, bartenders and caddies. If you are willing to haul around somebody else's junk in the heat, and you can just make small talk, you're a walking agency management system to me. You know what is up. And same with the bartender. If you can keep that small talk and you're engaging and you can multitask to that level and you're on your feet all day, and I say I can give you a career path. There's going to be growth here. There's going to be stability and not working until, 3 or 4 a.m. anymore, carrying kegs. Like, life's better, and it's just an opportunity. And we grade everybody when we go through during the actual recruiting process on grit, passion, curiosity, competition, and whether they're a challenger. Can I change your mind as a person? Am I curious enough to understand you, and then impactful and passionate enough to change your mind? And those are just people that have it. It's been ingrained, no different than the people at Best Buy that probably get told, like, hey, kick rocks, 9 out of 10 times, but they're still just as cheery when I walk in right after somebody else and there's already a long line. Like, they're working their butts off. Like, there's just a lot of people out there that don't have any bad habits. They don't have those limiting behaviors or that mindset. And you can just do so much, like, with a good training program and like the right tech stack and everything you need to make them successful. There are so many opportunities out there. And our first 30 days, they're kept track of off of a really, really small quota, like really reduced, like get in, understand it, learn it so that you can maintain your personality and feel confident in what you do. And then we judge them off of 360s. How are they integrating? Are they supporting their teammates? Are they weighing down one teammate? Are they weighing down the group? And we just rate 6 core competencies in that 360 on a scale of 1 to 5. And that doesn't come from me. That comes from the peers, the people that are in that role with them. And that's how we start weeding out, Dave, to your point, like the bad apples. If somebody comes in, even if they're an all-star, everybody's had that lone wolf before, even if they're an all-star, like, and they're killing the culture and they're pulling down the opportunity somebody else has to be great 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever it takes them to get there, that's a bigger indication and a bigger like red flag to me than just, you come up 1 item short, you come up 4 items short, you're 10% behind. I can get you there. If you have, the passion for doing it and you have the grit and the curiosity, we'll get you there. But if you just have that poor attitude, you're never going to overcome that.
No, and absolutely.
We've had the same experience as you did, Dave, with hiring those experienced agents. It's almost never worked out. Almost never.
No.
And the other thing to what Kat was saying is, dude, you got to have a culture of gratitude. Like, you got to have people that are grateful for being there. Then it makes an entire culture of where you're grateful that they're there. And like everybody's helping each other. You actually want to show up to work. There's been a couple times in our agency where I just didn't even want to show up. Like, it is horrible. And those rock stars, I had a couple, those rock stars that really weren't rock stars, but that had the highest sales at the time, really brought down everybody else. And they eventually left. And then you have to clean up after their messes for years.
Well, it's not worth having them in an organization. Like, I was honestly in the same shoes at one point, Jason. So I was having the same thing going on in an organization. We had a couple people that were, crushing it sales-wise, but they weren't living and breathing like our company culture the way we wanted it to. And, I think for over time, I think a lot of people can relate, like, oh, this person's performing, I'm going to let this slide. But I went to a conference and I heard this guy speak up on stage. His name was JJ. He operated the number 1 through 7 Honda dealerships in the entire country. He ran 7 Honda dealerships, and every one of them ranked 1 through 7 in the country. And they asked him on stage, what do you attribute your success to? And he said, non-compromising company culture. And he laid out non-negotiables. And that was the biggest thing I took out of the way of the culture. I immediately developed my non-negotiables. I went back and I said, you know what? My name is on the door. Going forward, I'm not going to walk in a work environment anything less than my perfect work environment. So I developed these non-negotiables and laid it out to our team, and we gave people time to adapt. We basically told them, like, I don't care how much you sell. If you cannot eat, live, and breathe our company culture and non-negotiables going forward, you just can't be off the team. And basically, some of the non-negotiables we put in place was, always be coachable, to PMA. So we require PMA. If you look in our agency, we got signs up everywhere that say no negativity allowed. But PMA is positive mental attitude. Like, it's literally a terminable offense in our agency if we catch somebody in there perpetuating negativity intentionally that's bringing down their teammates. Like, that being said, people can have problems, and we got an open door policy where they can come to us. But what we don't tolerate is somebody expressing their problems in a negative way that's bringing down others, that's not conducive to our work atmosphere. Living with integrity with every single thing that they do. Always be coachable, training every single day. Those are some of the non-negotiables that we put in place for everybody. And we drew a line, and we had some people that were top performers of us, and they couldn't adapt to that, and we separated ways. And some people are afraid of that, like, oh, it's going to kill my production. But our production increased. Like, everybody was glad when we had this culture. And now what we do is we protect the heck out of that culture. So when we bring in a new hire, like, a lot of times our agency and our people and our team, they'll vet that person out before they even get in there. They're like, this person isn't living our core values as an agency, or this person can't hold up to them, and we'll get rid of them before they even become a problem. So I found culture is like absolute must, absolute key. Develop the right culture and protect it at all costs.
So huge. And also on the hunt, right? If you are looking for just license, and even more specific, because you hear it all the time, if somebody's Allstate or Farmers, oh, I want them to have Farmers experience, right? And it's like, well, let's just shrink the candidate pool when we have to actually create a big funnel, right? Why would we limit ourselves to
that's almost like the equivalent of saying, you know what, I'm not going to quote anybody, I'm not going to review anybody's insurance policy unless I know they have an 800 perfect credit score, they own 3 houses, and they have 7 cars. You're going to go out of business looking for that person. You're never going to hire anybody looking for that person. You're going to get, what's going to happen out of it is an over-analysis paralysis in the situation that's going to result in not the results that you're looking for. So it is, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, you'll end up, if you have your expectations and you've set this net so tight, you'll end up with those rushed hires. They're not going to be necessarily bad hires, but you'll compromise to a point to get people there in the time frame that you need them. And rather than being open-minded to some exceptional talent that needed development from the get-go, you end up with some average talent that maybe has some, bad habits here and there, that they're just never going to be the rock stars. You're never going to have that upward potential sitting there that you could develop. No diamonds in the rough,
Yeah, and I think the message here is too, it's not just about finding the hire. There's a lot of components of getting the hire, developing the hire, maintaining the hire in there too. That's what I love about the process with recruiting. So a team hire, that's why we try to differentiate ourselves too, is, we'll be as involved in the process as you let us. Like, somebody can call my phone anytime, and if it's not even about hiring, if it's about company culture, whatever it is, I want that to be a massive success for the customer, because it's not just a one avenue of getting the person in there. There's a lot of steps in getting them to be a top performer, and then, retaining that person in within your company culture.
I want to touch on something real quick. In your opinion, if you had a smaller agency that only needs like 2 to 3 people, or maybe even just 2, would you hire one at a time to find the right person?
No, I would always be overstaffed by one person, because at the end of the day, if you're prepared to lose somebody and you always got somebody on the bench, I would 100% overstaff, especially going into the environment that we're going to be facing coming up, because compensation models change. It's all about acquisition. If you go into that and you're not prepared to, execute an acquisition model, it's going to be a tough go ahead, and you could get behind really quickly. And by not having that extra person and falling in a reactive hiring state, could cost you your year, could cost you your bonus, cost you everything. It could be detrimental to your office. So we have a philosophy to always have a bench. So one of the things that we'll do, and that we found to be real successful too, is especially if we bring somebody in, a lot of times we'll start them in what we call a sales support role. So we'll reward our top producers by assigning a sales support agent to them that's basically doing some of the heavy lifting, calling out, giving talk paths, and generating live quotes. So they'll start in that role, hitting the phones, just a real simple job description, where they got to get on the phone and talk to, you got to make $250 a day and talk to people, give a specific pitch, and support one of our best sales reps. So that's rewarding our top sales reps. So instead of investing as much into live transfers and a lot of marketing, we'll invest in people to generate those live transfers ourselves internally. But what that's doing at the same time is that's giving additional people in our organization. It's creating a bench. So the ones that come in and perform at a very high level, we'll set the expectation. If you come in 30, 60 days and you crush it, you're generating like 1.5 to 2 quotes an hour, and you're helping one of our, or a couple of our licensed sales producers really succeed, we'll give you the opportunity to get in their shoes really quickly. So get this done in 60 days, over deliver for us. We'll then invest in you at that point, get you licensed, and allow you to live in the shoes that everybody else is. So, I mean, what that does is they come in, they start crushing it for 60 days, delivering like some pretty good results for our sales producers. But that gives us a good gauge before we go in and make a major investment, get somebody licensed, invest in all this training and find out they don't work out. This gives us a good snapshot of how they act in our culture, how they work with their coworkers. In a lower position, are they trying to earn their keep to get to the next level, or are they just settling? So if they come in and they're living all the attributes that we look for, that's how we know, like, this person is going to be our next rock star on the sales team, and then we'll promote them and move them up to the role.
Love that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, we've had you guys for an hour, and thank you guys so much. What is one knowledge nugget that you would give to any insurance agent out there when it comes to hiring? Let's start with you, Kat, and then you, Dave. One knowledge nugget.
Thanks for having us for the hour. One, Dave, your story is awesome, and Craig and Jason, as always, you guys are absolutely great.
You're awesome as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
God, I would tell them to just be hyper aware of what they need, their non-negotiables, and then don't take a moment looking away from those. Know yourself, that self-awareness is so important. And then never, ever, whether it's during recruiting or even when you make a hire, it's not always gonna be perfect, but just never step away from that. You're going to end up somewhere down the road, kicking yourself in the butt, and you don't want to have to be cleaning up after those types of mistakes. And you don't want them to have the effect on the rest of your team and your agency. So I think a lot of people are at the point that they're running an agency self-aware. Tune into that and stick to it. Just be awesome at what you're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I would say, honestly, don't rush. Don't just because the first person that walks in the door or somebody's got a license, don't just rush and try to fill a gap.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. I waited for you my whole life.
Gap, and it might sound good and it might sound easy, but you're going to pay for it. Don't rush. So I would encourage people, involve your entire organization. Literally lay out the roadmap. What would a perfect employee look like? What are our non-negotiables? What is our culture? And then get the whole organization involved. Allow key staff members to interview. Allow your hiring manager to interview. Have you interview. And then come together in a consensus and say, can this person eat, live, and breathe our culture? Is this person going to be a problem in any capacity? How's this person's attitude? How's this person's work ethic? And collectively come together. And I went to, I don't know if anybody's ever gone to the Zappos experience out in Vegas, but Zappos, the shoe company, they literally have one of the craziest hiring processes I've ever seen. I went on the Zappos tour, and it's a 6-month process to bring somebody in their organization. They get so in-depth with it, and it's so important to them to protect their company culture that they have the cab driver is involved in the hiring process that brings the person to their organization. And the cab driver strikes up conversation to it unbeknownst to the candidate. And they'll interview the cab driver, how did this person react? How did the receptionist is involved? How did this person interact with you? They have a brand ambassador that walks that person around and introduces them to everybody in the organization. And they go after the fact and ask them, what did you think about this person? And then even when they decide to hire them, they literally have them on a 6-month probation where they're going through this test the entire time, where essentially the entire organization is voting on if this person belongs permanently as a part of our team or not. Mm-hmm. And they take it so serious that at the end of that 6 months, if they accept somebody in a permanent position and they graduate, They literally have an auditorium built at Zappos, and they invite the entire family. They invite the person up on stage, almost like a graduation ceremony, welcoming them into the company. So I saw that. Like, we obviously didn't bring our hiring process to that level, but I saw that and how important it was and how serious they took their company culture. And to me, like, that was like a major takeaway is, you know, take your time, make sure that you involve multiple people in the process, really define what your culture looks like and what you think the best employee attributes would look like in your organization, and ask yourself, does this person stack up and can they live my expectations?
Dave Williams dropping the mic at the end.
That's
awesome, man.
Yeah,
but
really good.
So much more leverage in having too many candidates versus the other way around, because they come in and they see you're struggling. They're going to take advantage of that, right? They can't fire me. I can take the day off because they can't do anything, right? So you want to put it in a position where you have the leverage. You guys, thank you so much. We definitely should do this again.
No, I'd love to. Absolutely. No, I'm passionate about this stuff. I love talking about it too.
Awesome.
Even if there's anybody out there, like, even if
I'm happy to be a resource.
I'm willing to have conversations about it. I love staffing, recruiting, and
well, thank you, Kat. Thank you, Dave. We'll put the link for Team Hired in the show notes. I think it's floating around in there right now in a bunch of the episodes. So we appreciate everything you bring, and it works. It really works.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of stuff in there that people might not have thought about, you know, and that's huge on why we do this to begin with, is just to open everyone's mind to the ways, you know, successful people have done it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. You know?
You don't. That's true. All right.
So true. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, you've got to check out the Insurance Dudes Inner Circle coming soon, where you get extended interviews as well as live coffee talks in our private Facebook group. Join the mailing list today at theinsurancedudespodcast.com. Hey, thanks for checking out The Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.